Welcome to Nova's Sleepy Tales, a place for gentle bedtime stories to help you relax, dream, and drift peacefully to sleep. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let's begin tonight's story. Far away from the busy towns, beyond the roads and the cities, where the waves gently touched the shore and the stars painted the night sky, there was a small island called Moonbell Island. The island was peaceful. During the day, the sun warmed the golden sand. Seagulls flew above the blue ocean. Small boats passed by the island, carrying fishermen, travelers, and dreamers. But when the sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon, when the sky turned deep blue, when the first stars began to appear, the island became a different world, a world of silence, a world of gentle waves. And on the highest hill of Moonbell Island stood a little lighthouse. Its name was Luma. Luma was not the tallest lighthouse in the world. It was not the newest. Its walls were old. Its windows were small. And the paint on its door had faded after many years of ocean wind. But Luma had the warmest light. Every night, as darkness covered the ocean, Luma opened its golden lamp and sent a soft beam across the water. Not a bright, harsh light, but a calm, gentle glow. A glow that told every creature in the ocean, you are not alone. The little lighthouse loved the night. It loved watching the waves dance beneath the moon. It loved seeing tiny fish swim near the rocks. It loved hearing the quiet songs of the sea. But most of all, Luma loved helping travelers find their way home. Every night, ships far away looked for the little golden light, and when they saw it, they knew. Moonbell Island is nearby. Home is not far. One quiet evening, the old lighthouse keeper, a kind man named Thomas, climbed the stairs to Luma's lantern room. Thomas had taken care of Luma for many years. He cleaned its windows, he polished its lamp, and every night, before turning on the light, he whispered, "Another peaceful night, my friend." Luma always felt happy when Thomas said that, because even though Luma was made of stone and metal, it had a little heart full of memories. Thomas looked outside at the ocean. The waves were calm. The sky was full of stars. "Tonight feels special," Thomas said softly. Luma wondered why. The old keeper smiled. "Sometimes the quietest nights hold the biggest stories." Then Thomas turned on the light. The golden beam slowly moved across the dark ocean, and far away, something was waiting. Something that had been lost for a very long time. Something that would bring Luma a story it would never forget. The ocean whispered. The wind moved gently, and the little lighthouse watched, waiting. The little lighthouse. Luma continued to shine across the quiet ocean. The golden light moved slowly, across the waves, across the empty sea, across the peaceful night. The moon was high above the island, and everything seemed perfectly still. The palm trees gently moved with the soft wind. The little birds resting in their nests were dreaming. The ocean creatures were floating peacefully beneath the surface. It was one of those nights when the world felt like it was sleeping. But far away from Moonbell Island, a tiny boat was moving slowly through the water. The boat was old. Its wooden sides carried marks from many journeys. Its little sail was tired from years of traveling. Inside the boat was a small traveler named Eli. Eli was not looking for treasure. He was not searching for adventure. He was simply trying to find his way home. For many hours, Eli had followed the stars. But clouds covered the sky earlier that night, and the ocean became confusing. Every direction looked the same. Every wave sounded the same. Eli looked around. The ocean was endless. The night was quiet. And for the first time in a long while, Eli felt a little lost. He sat down and listened to the gentle sound of water touching the boat. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was calming, like a quiet song from the sea. Eli closed his eyes for a moment. "Maybe I should rest," he whispered. But just as he was about to sleep, a tiny golden light appeared far away. At first, Eli thought he was imagining it. A small glow in the darkness, a warm little sparkle beyond the waves. He opened his eyes. There it was again. The light moved slowly across the ocean. A lighthouse. A real lighthouse. Eli smiled. Someone is there. The little boat gently turned toward the light. With every wave, the boat moved closer, and Luma saw the tiny boat. The old lighthouse noticed something unusual. A boat traveling alone in the middle of the night on the quiet ocean. Luma's golden light became a little brighter. Not too bright, just enough to say, "I see you." The waves carried Eli closer. and as he followed the lighthouse beam, he felt something he had not felt for hours. Hope. The ocean no longer felt endless. The night no longer felt empty, because somewhere ahead, there was a place waiting for him, a small island, a warm light, a peaceful home. Inside the lantern room, Thomas watched the boat approaching. He smiled. I knew tonight had a story. The old keeper walked down the spiral stairs slowly. The lighthouse door opened. The soft ocean breeze entered, and Luma continued shining, watching, guiding, protecting. As the little boat came closer to Moonbell Island, the stars above seemed to shine a little more gently, and the sleeping ocean whispered, everything that is lost can find its way home. The little boat finally reached the peaceful waters near Moonbell Island. The golden light from Luma moved gently across the waves, like a quiet hand, guiding the traveler home. Eli looked up at the lighthouse. For the first time that night, he felt safe. The old wooden boat touched the shore. The sound was quiet, almost like the ocean itself was saying, welcome. Thomas walked toward the beach with a small lantern in his hand. The old keeper smiled warmly. Are you all right, traveler? Eli stepped out of the boat. He looked tired, but his eyes were peaceful. Yes, Eli replied. Thank you for your light. Thomas looked back at Luma. The lighthouse continued glowing above them. Luma has guided many travelers over the years. But tonight, your journey feels different. The night remained quiet around Moonbell Island. The stars slowly moved across the sky, and the little lighthouse Luma continued to shine over the ocean. Thomas looked at the small wooden box in Eli's hands. It looked simple, but somehow it felt important. Where did you find this? Thomas asked gently. Eli looked down at the box. My grandfather kept it for many years. He always said that one day it would return to the place where it belonged. The waves softly touched the shore. The sound was calm, like a peaceful song. Thomas walked slowly toward the lighthouse. Come with me. Eli followed him up the old stone steps. Step by step, higher and higher. They moved toward the warm golden light. Inside the lighthouse, everything was peaceful. The old clock on the wall ticked softly. The windows showed the endless ocean, and the lamp above them turned slowly. Eli looked around. This place feels familiar. Thomas smiled. Sometimes places remember people. Eli held the wooden box closer. He slowly opened it. Inside was a small glass piece. A piece of something that looked like an old lantern. Thomas became silent because he knew exactly what it was. Many years ago, before Luma became the lighthouse everyone knew, there was another light, a smaller light, a light created by the first keeper of Moonbell Island. The old keeper believed something special. He believed a lighthouse was not only built with stones, it was built with kindness. Every night, the first keeper would say, "A light is not important because it shines far. A light is important because it helps someone find their way." Eli listened carefully. The story felt warm, like a memory from a dream. Thomas looked at Luma. "Your grandfather knew the first keeper's story. He promised to protect this piece until it returned." Eli looked surprised. "My grandfather never told me." Thomas smiled softly. "Some stories are kept quiet until the right night arrives." Outside, the ocean moved gently. The moon reflected on the water, and Luma's golden light continued to travel across the waves, watching over everyone who needed a little hope. That night, the little lighthouse discovered something it had forgotten. A story can sleep for many years, but it never truly disappears. The little lighthouse Luma continued to glow. The golden light slowly moved across the ocean, and inside the quiet lantern room, Thomas, Eli, and the old lighthouse listened to the silence of the night. Eli looked at the small glass piece from the wooden box. It was old, but it still carried a soft shine. "What was this used for?" Eli asked. Thomas looked toward the ocean. Then he began to tell a story. A story from many years ago. Long before Thomas came to Moonbell Island, there was a lighthouse keeper named Arthur. Arthur was the first person who cared for Luma. Back then, the lighthouse was smaller. The island was quieter, and fewer ships traveled through those waters. But Arthur believed every traveler deserved a safe path home. Every evening, before the sun disappeared, Arthur climbed the lighthouse stairs. He cleaned the windows, he checked the lamp, and he whispered, "May this light find anyone who needs it." The island animals knew Arthur well. The birds rested near the lighthouse. The little foxes walked around the hill, and the ocean creatures came close to the shore. Arthur was kind to everyone, even the smallest creatures. One night, a powerful storm arrived. The ocean became wild. The waves grew taller. The wind moved faster. Many ships were far away, lost in the darkness. Arthur climbed to the top of Luma. The lighthouse shook slightly from the strong wind, but Arthur stayed calm. He looked at the stormy ocean, and he turned the light brighter. The beam traveled through the rain, through the clouds, across the dark sea. Hours passed. The storm continued, but Luma never stopped shining. One by one, the ships began to see the light. They followed it. They found their way. They returned home. When the morning arrived, the storm disappeared. The ocean became peaceful again. Arthur looked at the sunrise. He smiled because he knew something important. The lighthouse was not just a building, it was a promise. A promise that no one had to feel completely lost. Eli listened quietly. The story touched his heart. Then Thomas pointed toward the small glass piece. This belonged to the original lamp. The same lamp that helped those ships find home. Eli gently placed the piece near Luma's old light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lighthouse glow became warmer. Not brighter, just warmer. Like an old friend remembering a familiar voice. Outside, the waves whispered softly. The stars continued watching. And somewhere far away, a sleeping ocean remembered the kindness of the first keeper. The warm light of Luma continued to shine, softly, quietly, across the sleeping ocean. Eli stood beside the lantern room window. He watched the waves moving under the moonlight. Everything felt peaceful, like the whole world had slowed down. Thomas sat in an old wooden chair. For many years he had watched the ocean from that same room. But tonight, something felt different. The lighthouse was remembering, and the ocean seemed to be telling a story. A gentle breeze entered through the window. The curtains moved slowly. Eli looked outside. "Did you hear that?" Thomas smiled. "The ocean always speaks, but most people are too busy to listen." Eli stayed quiet. He listened carefully. The waves touched the shore again and again, a soft rhythm, a peaceful song. Then a small sound came from below the lighthouse. Not a loud sound, not a scary sound, a gentle sound, like something moving through the sand. Thomas picked up his lantern. "Let's see what the ocean brought us tonight." They slowly walked down the spiral stairs, step by step. The old lighthouse stayed behind them. Outside, the moon was shining on the beach, and near the water, they found a small wooden object. It was a tiny boat, a toy boat. Eli picked it up carefully. "There is something written here." He brushed away the sand. On the little boat were the words, "Follow the light." Thomas looked surprised because he remembered those words. Arthur, the first lighthouse keeper, used to carve those same words on small wooden boats. He would place them in the ocean for children on nearby islands. The children would find them days later, and each boat carried a small message, a message of kindness. Eli looked at Thomas. "Do you think this is from Arthur?" Thomas looked toward the ocean. "I don't know, but sometimes old memories find their way back." The little boat had another secret. Inside it, there was a tiny folded piece of paper. Eli carefully opened it. The paper was old, but the writing was still clear. It said, "Dear traveler, if you ever feel lost, look for the light. The ocean may be wide, the night may be long, but somewhere a light will always be waiting." Eli read the message slowly, and for some reason those simple words felt like they were written just for him. The wind became softer, the waves became calmer, and Luma continued shining above them. The little lighthouse understood something that night. Sometimes a message does not travel through distance. Sometimes it travels through time. And sometimes the smallest light can carry the biggest hope. The night continued peacefully on Moonbell Island. The stars rested above the ocean, and the little lighthouse Luma kept watching over everything. After reading the old message, Eli stayed quiet for a while. The words followed his thoughts. Look for the light. He wondered how many people had needed those words before him. Thomas looked at the young traveler. Come, there is something else I want to show you. Eli followed Thomas around the lighthouse. Behind the tall stone walls, there was a small hidden garden. The garden was quiet and almost untouched. Small flowers grew between the rocks. The soft ocean wind moved through the leaves. The moonlight covered everything with a gentle glow. Eli looked surprised. I never knew this place existed. Thomas smiled. Not many people do. This garden was created by Arthur, the first keeper. Eli walked slowly through the flowers. Each plant looked different. Some were tiny, some were old. Some looked like they had been growing there for many years. Thomas pointed toward a small tree near the edge of the garden. That tree was planted on Arthur's first night here. Eli looked at it. The tree was not very tall, but it was strong. Arthur believed that everything needed time. Lights need time to guide. Trees need time to grow. And people need time to find their way. The ocean waves moved gently nearby. Eli sat beside the little tree. He thought about his journey. For so long he had been searching for answers. But tonight, on a quiet island beside an old lighthouse, he realized something. Sometimes you do not find your path by rushing. Sometimes you find it when you slow down enough to notice the small things. Thomas looked at the sky. Arthur used to sit here every night. He would listen to the ocean, and he believed the sea carried memories. Eli smiled. Do you believe that? Thomas looked at Luma. Yes, because tonight the ocean brought you here. A soft breeze passed through the garden. The flowers moved gently, and for a moment it felt like someone was there. Not a person, not a shadow, just a peaceful feeling. A reminder that kindness can remain, even after many years. The little lighthouse above them continued to shine, and the sleeping ocean whispered softly, every journey has a reason. Every traveler has a destination. Every light has a purpose. The night became quieter. The island became calmer. And slowly, Moonbell Island fell deeper into sleep. The moon moved slowly across the sky. The little island of Moonbell became quieter with every passing moment. The waves touched the shore gently, again and again, like a soft song that never ended. Eli sat in the garden behind the lighthouse. He closed his eyes for a moment. He listened. The ocean was not loud. The wind was not strong. The night was simply peaceful. Thomas looked at the young traveler. "You hear it now, don't you?" Eli opened his eyes. "Hear what?" Thomas smiled. "The song of the ocean." Eli listened again. At first, he heard only the waves, but slowly he noticed something different. A rhythm, a pattern, a gentle melody created by nature itself. The ocean was telling a story without words, a story about all the ships that traveled across its waters, the fishermen who returned home, the explorers who followed the stars, the dreamers who searched for new places, and all the travelers who once looked for Luma's golden light. Eli thought about his grandfather. He remembered the old stories from his childhood. His grandfather would always say, "The world is bigger than we can see, but there are always small signs showing us the way." Eli never fully understood those words until tonight. The little lighthouse, the old message, and the wooden boat. Everything had a meaning. Thomas walked toward the lighthouse door. "Come inside. It is getting late." Eli followed him. Inside Luma, the warmth of the lantern filled the room. The old clock continued ticking softly. The stairs creaked gently. Everything felt familiar, like a home that had been waiting. Thomas prepared a small room for Eli. A simple room, a comfortable bed, a window facing the ocean. Eli looked outside. The lighthouse light moved across the waves. He whispered, "Thank you, Luma." For a moment, the lighthouse seemed to answer, not with words, but with its gentle glow. Thomas smiled. "Good night, traveler. Rest now. Tomorrow will bring a new morning." Eli lay down. The sound of the ocean filled the room. The waves, the wind, and the soft lighthouse light slowly became a dream. Far above the island, the stars continued shining. The little lighthouse stayed awake, watching, protecting, and guiding, because that was what Luma was made to do. And as the night became deeper, Moonbell Island peacefully fell asleep. The night slowly faded away, and the first light of morning appeared over the ocean. The dark blue sky became soft and golden. The stars slowly disappeared. The waves continued their gentle dance. And after a long, peaceful night, Moonbell Island woke up. The birds opened their eyes. The trees moved softly in the morning breeze. The little flowers in the hidden garden turned toward the sunlight. Inside the lighthouse, Eli slowly opened his eyes. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he heard it. The ocean. The same calm sound that helped him through the night. He looked through the window, and there it was. Luma, the little lighthouse, still standing, still shining. Eli smiled. He walked downstairs slowly. Thomas was already there preparing a simple breakfast. "Good morning," Thomas said. "Did you sleep well?" Eli nodded. "Yes, better than I have in a long time." Thomas smiled. Sometimes a quiet place can give the best rest. They sat near the window. Outside, the ocean looked completely different. At night, it was mysterious. But in the morning, it looked peaceful. Like it was saying, "You made it." Eli looked at the horizon. "I think I understand now." Thomas looked at him. "Understand what?" Eli answered softly. "My journey was not only about finding this island. It was about finding the reason I was searching." Thomas smiled. "Your grandfather knew something important. He knew that every person has a light somewhere, a place that helps them remember who they are." Eli looked at Luma. The little lighthouse stood quietly. No celebration, no noise, just a gentle light, doing what it always did, helping, guiding, and protecting. After breakfast, Eli walked around the island. He visited the garden. He walked along the beach. He watched small waves touch the sand. Everything felt simple, but beautiful. Near the shore, he found the little wooden boat from the night before. He picked it up and placed it carefully beside the lighthouse. A small memory, a small reminder that even the smallest things can carry a big meaning. As the day continued, the island became brighter. And somewhere inside the old lighthouse, Luma remembered another lesson. A light is never only for the person holding it. A true light is meant to be shared. The afternoon slowly passed over Moonbell Island. The sun moved gently across the sky. and the ocean sparkled like 1,000 tiny pieces of glass. The little lighthouse Luma stood quietly on the hill. Everything seemed normal, but the ocean had another surprise. As the tide came closer to the shore, a small shape appeared in the distance. At first, it looked like a tiny boat. Thomas noticed it from the lighthouse window. Someone is coming. Eli walked beside him. They watched quietly. The little boat moved slowly with the waves, not in a hurry, not afraid, just peacefully traveling toward the island. As the boat came closer, they saw an old woman sitting inside. She was holding a small bag, and beside her was a collection of old letters. When she reached the shore, Thomas walked down to welcome her. "Welcome to Moonbell Island." The woman smiled. "It has been many years." Thomas looked surprised. "You have been here before?" She nodded. "Long ago. I came here when I was a child." Her eyes moved toward the lighthouse. "To see the light." Eli listened carefully. The woman looked at Luma. "I remember this lighthouse. It helped my family find our way home." The wind moved softly around them. Thomas smiled. "Luma has helped many people." The woman opened her small bag. Inside were many old letters. These were written by travelers, people who found their way because of this light. Eli looked at the letters. Each one was a memory, a small piece of someone's life. The woman picked one letter. She opened it carefully. "My father wrote this after a storm many years ago. He said the lighthouse saved him. He promised that one day he would return." She looked at Luma. "But life moves quickly, and sometimes people forget to return to the places that helped them." The ocean became quiet, almost as if it was listening. Thomas gently said, "But the lighthouse never forgot them." The evening slowly arrived on Moonbell Island. The golden sunlight disappeared behind the ocean, and the sky became filled with soft colors. The old woman stayed with Thomas and Eli. They talked about the past. They shared stories. They remembered people who had once followed Luma's light. As the stars began appearing, Thomas looked toward the lighthouse. "There is one more place you should see." Eli looked curious. "Another secret?" Thomas smiled. "Perhaps." They entered the lighthouse together. But instead of going upstairs, Thomas opened a small wooden door near the bottom of the stairs, a door that Eli had not noticed before. The door was old. The handle was made of brass, and on it was a small symbol, a shining light. Thomas slowly opened it. Inside was a hidden room, a quiet little library. Eli looked around in amazement. The shelves were filled with old books, books about the ocean, books about the island, books about the travelers who passed by. The room smelled like old paper and wood, a peaceful smell, a comforting smell. The old woman smiled. I remember this place. My parents brought me here when I was young. Eli walked closer to the shelves. He noticed something. Every book had a name on it, not the name of the book, the name of a person. Thomas explained. Arthur started this library. He believed every journey deserved to be remembered. So whenever someone found their way because of Luma, they could leave behind their story. Eli touched one of the books carefully. Every person. Thomas nodded. Every person. They opened a small book. The first page said, "Those who followed the light." Inside were hundreds of stories. A sailor who returned home after a storm. A family who found the island after being lost. A young explorer who discovered courage. A child who learned not to fear the dark. All different stories, but all connected by one thing, Luma's light. The old woman found a small empty space on one shelf. She placed one of her letters there. This belongs here. The room became quiet. Then Eli noticed a small empty book. It had no name, no writing, nothing. Thomas smiled. That book is waiting. Waiting for what? Thomas looked at Eli. For a new story. The night returned gently to Moonbell Island. The sky became dark and peaceful. The stars appeared one by one, and Luma's golden light started its nightly journey across the ocean. Inside the hidden library, Eli sat at a small wooden table. In front of him was the empty book. The book that had been waiting. For a while, Eli did not write anything. He simply listened. The quiet ticking of the old clock, the soft sound of the ocean outside, the gentle movement of the lighthouse. Everything felt calm. Thomas looked at him. Stories do not always begin with words. Sometimes they begin with a feeling. Eli smiled. He picked up the old pen on the table, and slowly he began to write. Tonight, I found a place I never expected to find. A place where the ocean whispers. A place where a small light can guide someone through darkness. He continued writing. He wrote about the little boat, the old message, the wooden box, the hidden garden, the memories of Arthur, and the kindness of the lighthouse. Every word became a piece of the night. The old woman watched quietly. She smiled. Your grandfather would have loved this. Eli looked up. You knew my grandfather? The woman nodded. Many years ago. He came here when he was young. He also followed Luma's light. Eli was surprised. My grandfather was here? Thomas smiled. Yes. He was one of the travelers who left a story. Eli looked around the library. Suddenly, everything felt connected. His grandfather, the wooden box, the lighthouse, the ocean. All of it was part of one long journey. A journey that started many years ago. The old woman walked to one shelf. She pulled out a very old book. This is your grandfather's story. Eli opened it carefully. The pages were old, but the words were clear. It said, sometimes we spend our whole lives searching for a place. But the truth is, the place was guiding us all along. Eli became quiet. Those words felt familiar, almost like his grandfather was speaking directly to him. The lighthouse continued glowing. The ocean continued singing. And Eli finally understood. He was never truly. The night was calm on Moonbell Island. The ocean moved slowly beneath the moon. The little lighthouse Luma continued shining. Inside the hidden library, Eli carefully closed his grandfather's old book. He held it for a moment. Not because he was sad, but because he felt connected. Connected to a story that began long before he arrived. Thomas looked outside the window. The ocean is quiet tonight. Eli smiled. It feels like it is resting. Thomas nodded. Even the ocean needs peaceful nights. They walked outside. The beach was covered in silver moonlight. The waves gently touched the sand. Near the shore, the little wooden boat was waiting. The same tiny boat that carried the message. Eli looked at it. Do you think it came from the ocean? Thomas smiled. Maybe. Or maybe it came from someone who needed to send a message. Eli sat beside the boat. He noticed something. There was a small empty space inside it, like something was missing. The old woman looked carefully. Arthur used to do something special. Every time a traveler found their way, he would place a new message inside a little boat and send it back to the ocean. Eli understood. The boat was not finished. It was waiting for another message. Eli took a small piece of paper. He thought for a moment. Then he wrote, "If you are reading this, remember that you are not alone. Somewhere in the world, there is always a light that can guide you." He folded the paper and placed it inside the little boat. Thomas helped him push the boat into the water. Slowly, the waves carried it away. The little boat moved gently under the moon. The lighthouse beam followed it. Farther and farther, until it became a tiny shape in the distance. Eli watched quietly. Where will it go? Thomas answered softly, wherever someone needs to find it. The ocean carried the little boat. Not quickly, not slowly, just peacefully, like every journey should be. And from the hill above, Luma watched. The little lighthouse understood something important. A light does not become smaller when it helps someone else. The little boat continued its peaceful journey across the quiet ocean under the endless sky. The moon followed it. The stars watched over it, and Luma's golden light slowly faded into the distance. On Moonbell Island, Eli stood beside the shore. He watched until the little boat disappeared. There was something beautiful about letting something go, because sometimes a message is not meant to stay with you. Sometimes it is meant to travel. The next morning, the island woke up once again. The birds sang, the flowers opened, the ocean sparkled under the sunlight. But far away, beyond the horizon, another island was waking up, an island called Willow Bay. On this island lived a young artist named Clara. Clara loved painting. She painted the ocean. She painted the sky. She painted the stars. But lately, she had forgotten how to dream. Every day she looked at her empty canvas, and every day she wondered what she was missing. She walked along the beach. She listened to the waves, but nothing felt the same. Until one quiet morning, something touched the shore. A tiny wooden boat. Clara noticed it near the sand. She picked it up carefully. This is strange. The boat looked old, but it was beautiful. She opened it. Inside was a small piece of paper. She read the message. If you are reading this, remember that you are not alone. Somewhere in the world, there is always a light. Clara read the words again and again. For some reason, they felt like they were written for her. A small smile appeared on her face. She looked toward the ocean. For the first time in many days, she felt inspired. She went home. She picked up her brush and she started painting. Not a painting of the ocean, not a painting of the stars. She painted a lighthouse, a small lighthouse with a warm golden light, a light shining through the darkness. Days passed. The painting became famous on her island. People asked, "Where did you get this idea?" Clara always smiled, and she said, "From a light I have never seen." Back on Moonbell Island, Luma continued its quiet work. The lighthouse, the days passed peacefully on Moonbell Island. The ocean followed its endless rhythm. The waves came and went, and Luma continued shining every night. Eli stayed on the island a little longer. He helped Thomas take care of the lighthouse. He cleaned the old windows. He polished the golden lamp. And every evening, he watched the light travel across the water. Life on the island was simple, but somehow it felt complete. One evening, Thomas looked at the sky. Tonight will be special. Eli looked up. The stars were brighter than usual. Thousands of tiny lights filled the sky. The ocean reflected them. It looked like the sea had its own sky beneath it. "The ocean is beautiful tonight," Eli whispered. Thomas smiled. Long ago, Arthur called this the night of 1,000 stars. Why? Thomas looked upward. Because on this night, people remember the lights they found in their lives. Eli thought about that. The lighthouse, his grandfather, the message, the travelers, all the stories connected together. That night, they opened the library. The old woman sat near the window. Thomas brought the old books, and Eli opened his unfinished story. He added new words. The greatest lights are not always in the sky. Sometimes they are people. Sometimes they are places. Sometimes they are memories. The room became quiet. The lighthouse lamp turned slowly. The ocean whispered outside. Then something unexpected happened. A small sound came from the beach. A gentle sound, like a boat touching the shore. Thomas looked outside. Another boat had arrived. A traveler had followed Luma's light. Again, just like many years before, the traveler stepped onto the island. He looked tired, but relieved. Thomas walked toward the door, and Eli smiled, because now he understood. This was what Luma did. Not just guide ships, not just shine through darkness, but welcome those who needed a peaceful place. The new traveler looked at the lighthouse and said, "I thought I was lost." Thomas answered gently, "Sometimes the path appears when you keep moving." The traveler looked at the night became deeper. The stars continued glowing above Moonbell Island, and the ocean moved gently beneath the quiet sky. The new traveler rested inside the lighthouse. After a long journey, he finally found a peaceful place. The little lighthouse Luma watched over him, just like it had watched over many others before. The next morning, the island woke slowly. The birds sang softly. The wind moved through the trees, and the sunlight touched the old stones of the lighthouse. Eli climbed the stairs. He reached the lantern room. The golden lamp was still warm from the night. He looked at the ocean. For many years, Thomas had been the keeper of Luma. But now, Eli wondered about something. "Thomas," the old keeper looked at him. "Yes? Who will take care of Luma when you are gone?" The room became quiet. The ocean waves continued outside. Thomas smiled. Everything has a time. A sunrise, a sunset, a beginning, and a new beginning. Eli looked at the lighthouse. "You mean?" Thomas nodded. "One day, the light will need a new keeper." Eli became silent. He understood. The lighthouse was not only a place, it was a responsibility, a promise, a tradition. Thomas walked toward the lamp. Arthur taught the first lesson. The light is not yours to keep. It is yours to protect. Eli remembered the stories, the storms, the travelers, the messages, the little boats. Everything led to this moment. Thomas placed his hand on the old lighthouse wall. Luma has always chosen people who understand kindness. The lighthouse stood quietly. Its golden glow touched the room. And for a moment, Eli felt something. A feeling that was difficult to explain. Like the lighthouse was asking a question, not with words, but with warmth. Eli smiled. I understand. The ocean moved gently. The wind passed through the windows, and the little lighthouse seemed brighter, not because the lamp changed, but because a new story had begun. From that day, Eli started learning. He learned how to care for the lamp, how to read the ocean, how to understand the wind, how to listen to the quiet messages of the night. Because being a lighthouse keeper was not only about lighting a lamp, it was about the nights continued to pass peacefully on Moonbell Island. The ocean kept its rhythm. The stars kept their silent watch. And Luma continued to shine. Eli slowly became part of the lighthouse. He knew every sound. The sound of the old stairs. The sound of the wind near the windows. The sound of the waves when they touched the shore. He learned that every night was different. Some nights were quiet. Some nights carried storms. Some nights brought travelers. But every night, Luma was there. One evening, Eli entered the hidden library alone. The room was peaceful. The old books rested on the shelves. The stories of many travelers were waiting. Eli walked toward the empty book. The same book where he wrote his story. But something was different. There was a small envelope beside it. Eli looked surprised. He carefully opened it. Inside was a letter. The paper looked old, very old. At the bottom, there was a name, Arthur, the first lighthouse keeper. Eli sat down slowly. He began reading. Dear Keeper of the Light, if you are reading this, it means Luma has found someone who understands. Eli continued. The lighthouse was never built only from stone. It was built from every kind action, every helping hand, every traveler who found hope. The room became quiet. Eli kept reading. Remember this. The brightest light is not the one that shines the farthest. The brightest light is the one that makes someone feel safe. Eli paused. Those words felt familiar because they were the same lesson he had learned. The ocean outside moved gently. The lighthouse lamp turned slowly. Eli looked around the library. Hundreds of stories surrounded him, hundreds of lives, hundreds of journeys, all connected by one small lighthouse. At the bottom of the letter, there was one final sentence. Take care of Luma. But more importantly, take care of the people who follow its light. Eli closed his eyes. He understood. The lighthouse was never about the building. It was about the hearts it touched. He placed Arthur's letter carefully in the library. Then he opened his own storybook and added one more line. The years moved gently on Moonbell Island. The seasons changed. The flowers bloomed. The leaves fell. And the waves continued their endless journey. Through every season, the little lighthouse Luma remained on the hill, still shining, still watching, still guiding. Eli grew older, but every evening he climbed the same old stairs. He cleaned the same windows. He checked the same golden lamp. And he looked at the same endless ocean, because some things never needed to change. One peaceful night, Eli stood in the lantern room. The moon was brighter than usual. The stars covered the entire sky, and the ocean looked like a blanket of silver. He remembered the first night he arrived, the tiny boat, the old message, the wooden box, the hidden garden, the stories, everything. It felt like a dream, but it was real, a quiet journey, a journey that changed everything. Thomas was no longer there, but his lessons remained, Arthur's words remained, and the light remained. Eli placed his hand on the lighthouse wall. Thank you, Luma. The lighthouse glowed softly, as if saying, You are welcome. The ocean moved gently below, and Eli smiled, because he finally understood something. A person does not have to be famous to matter. A place does not have to be large to be important. A small light in the darkness can change someone's entire journey. The night became quieter. The wind became softer. The island slowly fell asleep. The birds rested. The trees rested. The ocean rested. And even the old lighthouse seemed peaceful. But before the night ended, a small boat appeared far away. Another traveler, another journey, another person searching for a way home. Eli turned the lamp slightly. The golden light traveled across the waves. The traveler saw it and smiled, because somewhere in the darkness there was a light. The little boat moved closer to Moonbell Island, slowly and peacefully, following the golden beam of Luma. The traveler inside the boat looked at the lighthouse. For many hours, the ocean had been dark. The waves had been unfamiliar. The path ahead had been uncertain. But now, everything felt different because there was light. And sometimes, that is all someone needs. A small sign, a gentle reminder that they are moving in the right direction. The boat reached the shore. The traveler stepped onto the sand. The island was quiet, almost as if it was sleeping. Eli walked down from the lighthouse. He carried a small lantern, and he welcomed the traveler. "Welcome to Moonbell Island." The traveler smiled. "I thought I was lost." Eli looked at the lighthouse. Many years ago, he had said the same thing. "I thought that too." The traveler looked surprised. "But you found your way." Eli smiled. "Yes, because the light was there." They walked toward the lighthouse. The traveler looked around. The old stones, the warm glow, the peaceful ocean. Everything felt safe. Inside the lighthouse, the traveler noticed the library. Thousands of stories, thousands of memories, thousands of journeys. The night became deeper. The waves moved softly against the shore. The wind passed gently through the trees. And Moonbell Island rested under the peaceful sky. Inside the lighthouse, the traveler was sleeping. After a long journey, he finally found rest. Eli sat near the lantern room window. He watched the ocean. The golden light moved slowly across the water, over the waves, into the quiet darkness. For a moment, Eli remembered everything. The first night he arrived, the little wooden box, the hidden library, the stories of the travelers, the message from Arthur. All those moments brought him here. He looked at the old lighthouse, and he realized something. The lighthouse had been dreaming too. Not like people dream, but in its own way. Every story it carried was a dream. Every person it helped was a memory. Every light it shared was a piece of hope. Eli walked to the library. The old books were quiet, but they were full of life. because every page held a voice of someone who once needed guidance, a voice of someone who found their way. Eli opened the oldest book. The first page had Arthur's words. The ocean is always moving. The stars are always changing. But kindness can remain forever. Eli read the words slowly. Then he smiled, because now he understood. The lighthouse was not only watching the ocean, it was watching the stories of the world. Outside, the moon moved higher. The island became even quieter. And something beautiful happened. A gentle mist covered the ocean. The waves became almost silent. The whole world seemed to stop for a moment. A perfect, peaceful moment. The traveler slept. The birds slept. The trees slept. And even the ocean seemed to dream. Eli turned the light slightly. The golden beam continued its journey, searching the darkness, finding anyone who needed it. The night continued. Moonbell Island remained quiet beneath the stars. The ocean moved slowly. The waves came closer, then gently returned, like a peaceful breath. Inside the lighthouse, everything was calm. The traveler was sleeping. The old books were resting, and Luma's golden light continued its endless journey. Eli sat near the window. He watched the ocean for a long time. There was something different tonight. The sea looked like it was carrying dreams. Tiny reflections of stars moved across the waves, and every little sparkle looked like a memory. Eli closed his eyes. For a moment, he imagined all the travelers who had followed Luma's light, the sailor who found his way home, the family who discovered safety, the child who learned not to fear the dark, the dreamer who found courage. All their stories were moving together like one endless ocean, a peaceful ocean of dreams. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the library. Eli opened his eyes. He walked slowly downstairs. The library was glowing gently, not from the lighthouse, but from something inside the room. Eli looked around. One of the old books was open, a book that had been closed for many years. He walked closer. The pages moved slightly in the breeze, but the window was closed. Eli carefully looked at the page. There were new words. words that were not there before. It said, "Every light has a beginning. Every journey has a path. And every heart has a place where it belongs." Eli smiled because he knew the lighthouse was not creating magic. It was reminding him of something everyone already carried: hope, kindness, and the courage to continue. The ocean outside became softer. The stars became brighter. And the whole island felt like it was floating inside a dream. Eli returned upstairs. He checked the lamp one more time. The golden light moved across the night, stayed peaceful. The moon slowly moved across the sky. The ocean continued its gentle song, and Moonbell Island rested beneath the stars. But the island was not just a piece of land. It was a place full of memories. Every wave that touched the shore carried a story. Every tree that moved with the wind held a moment from the past. Every stone near the lighthouse remembered someone who had walked there. Eli often wondered, how many dreams had this island seen? How many travelers had looked at Luma's light and felt hope? How many people had stood on the beach and whispered, "I am finally safe." One quiet evening, Eli walked through the hidden garden behind the lighthouse. The flowers were moving gently. The old tree planted by Arthur was taller now. Its branches reached toward the sky. Eli placed his hand on the tree. "You have seen so much." The leaves moved softly, almost like an answer. Eli smiled. He sat beneath the tree, and he listened. The ocean, the wind, the quiet sounds of the island, everything together created a peaceful melody. Then he noticed something near the roots. A small wooden box. An old one. Eli carefully picked it up. The box looked familiar, like the one that brought him to Moonbell Island. But this one was smaller. He opened it slowly. Inside was a tiny collection of seeds and a small note. The note was written by Arthur. It said, "Plant these where the next dream begins." Eli looked around. The island was already beautiful, but he understood. A place is never finished growing. There is always something new, a new story, a new beginning. The next morning, Eli planted the seeds near the garden. He watered them, he cared for them, and he waited. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, tiny green leaves appeared. New flowers began to grow, different from all the others. The island had a new garden, a garden that began with a small dream. And every evening, when Luma's light turned on, the new flowers moved softly in the golden glow, as if they were saying. The days moved slowly on Moonbell Island. The sun rose, the sun set, and every night, Luma continued to shine. The new garden grew beside the lighthouse. The flowers became stronger. The little leaves became branches, and the island became even more beautiful. Eli watched everything change, but he knew some journeys are not about arriving. They are about seeing the world grow around you. One evening, the ocean became unusually calm, almost too calm. The waves were smooth like glass. The sky was clear, and the stars reflected perfectly on the water. Eli stood near the shore. He felt something was different, not something bad, something peaceful. Like the ocean was preparing for a special moment. Far away, a small boat appeared. But this boat was different. It was old, very old. The wooden sides carried many marks, like it had traveled across countless seas. Eli waited. The boat slowly reached the shore. There was no one inside, only a small wooden box. Eli carefully lifted the box. Inside, there was an old compass and a letter. The letter had no name, only one sentence on the front. For the keeper of the light. Eli opened it. The words were gentle. Dear keeper, if this message has reached you, it means the ocean has completed another journey. Eli continued reading. The light you protect has guided many. But remember, even the keeper sometimes needs to follow a light. Eli became quiet. He looked at Luma. The lighthouse continued glowing. The letter continued. One day, you may wonder if your journey is complete. When that day comes, look at the ocean. The ocean will always show you. Eli closed the letter. He understood. Every ending was also a beginning. Every goodbye carried a new hello. The compass in the box pointed toward the horizon, not toward another island, not toward another place, just toward the endless ocean. Eli smiled, because the night became very quiet. The ocean rested beneath the moon. The stars watched from above, and Luma continued shining over Moonbell Island. Eli held the old letter in his hands. He read the words again. Even the keeper sometimes needs to follow a light. Those words stayed in his mind. For many years, he had cared for Luma. He had guided travelers. He had protected the stories. But now, he wondered, what was the next part of his own journey? The next morning, Eli climbed the lighthouse stairs, slowly, quietly. Every step carried a memory. The first time he saw the lantern room, the first time he turned on the light, the first story he wrote in the library. All those moments were still there. Inside the lantern room, Eli looked at the ocean, the same ocean that once made him feel lost. Now it felt like an old friend. Thomas once told him, "The ocean does not take people away. It teaches them where they belong." Eli smiled, because he finally understood. The lighthouse had given him more than a home. It had given him a purpose. That evening, a young traveler arrived, a new person searching for answers. The traveler looked tired, confused, and uncertain. Eli welcomed them. "Welcome to Moonbell Island." The traveler looked at the lighthouse. "Does this light always stay on?" Eli smiled. "Yes." "Why?" Eli looked at Luma. Then he answered softly, "Because somewhere, someone may need it." The traveler looked at the ocean, and for the first time, they felt calm. Later that night, Eli opened the library. He showed the traveler the old books, the stories, the memories, the journeys. He explained, "Every person who comes here leaves something behind. Not an object. A lesson." The traveler asked, "What did you leave behind?" Eli thought for a moment. Then he smiled. "I left behind the fear of being lost." The room became silent. A peaceful silence. The kind of silence that feels warm. Outside, the waves touched the shore. The lighthouse turned slowly, and the golden light crossed the ocean. Because Luma had learned one final lesson too. A light is not only meant to guide others, sometimes it helps you discover yourself. Moonbell Island became quiet again. The traveler rested peacefully inside the lighthouse. The ocean moved gently, and the stars covered the sky. Eli stood in the lantern room. His hand rested on the old lighthouse wall. For a long time, he said nothing. He simply listened. The sound of the waves, the sound of the wind, the quiet heartbeat of the lighthouse. Everything felt familiar. Everything felt like home. Years ago, Eli arrived at this island searching for something. He thought he was searching for an answer, but the island gave him something more. It gave him peace. It gave him memories. It gave him a place to belong. The little lighthouse Luma had watched over many travelers, but it had also watched over Eli, the boy who arrived uncertain, the traveler who found his way, the keeper who learned the meaning of light. Outside, the ocean stretched endlessly. There were no borders, no limits, only waves, only sky, only dreams. Eli looked toward the horizon. Somewhere out there were more journeys, more stories, more people who needed a little hope. And Luma would be there, always. Not because the lighthouse was magical, but because kindness was powerful. A small light, a simple message, a gentle welcome. Sometimes that was enough to change a life. The next morning, the sun rose over Moonbell Island. The golden light of the morning touched the lighthouse. The flowers opened. The birds sang. The ocean sparkled. And everything felt new. But one thing remained the same. The lighthouse stood on the hill, watching, waiting, guiding. The story of Moonbell Island continued. Not in one book, not in one moment, but in every person who found their way there, and every night. When darkness covered the ocean, a little golden light appeared, a light that whispered, "You are not alone. You can keep going. You will find your way." And the ocean carried those words across the world forever.